I met a gypsy.
When I had Brock on here, we were talking about, I guess, the way that younger kids kind of aspiring to V8s, and maybe it wasn't like that in the past. And nowadays, I think with Brock, this is me pretty out on the outer, you know. You see a young kid like Brock get basically the premier drive in supercars, as did the Super 3, then the Super 2, and then bang, it's like it was that a feeder system for a super young kid. That hasn't really happened that much before, and it almost seems like he's kind of set a new little trajectory for maybe younger guys that looked at F3 and then F2 and to get into F1, and maybe supercars wasn't looked at in that same way before.
Yeah, I think, well, I always tell everyone reverse engineer your budget, because I get everyone coming to, what should I do? I go, how much money you got? You know?
True way.
If you ain't got 20 million ready to blow, don't even go to Europe, you know. So Brock was in that category where they had enough money to probably, if they got it all right, they might get through.
Yeah, right.
But if you take that back a bit further, he comes from his dad, Paul Feeney, knows about racing, you know.
Yeah.
So grew up in a racing household, knew what they wanted to do, had a good relationship with me where we trusted each other, and right, we've got to get this done, you know. And then straight away I knew I had something pretty special on my hands with Brock. Like, it was...
And talent, was it talent-wise, work ethic?
Every box you could tick.
Yeah.
He had it. He had it. Like, first one to turn up for work, last one to leave. The cars were always clean. You know, he turned up, his clothes were clean. Always rang and thanked you. Knows that I'm an old guy and I don't text, so he calls me. You know, he just understands that whole facet of the business, and no one taught him that. That's just from hanging around his dad, I reckon.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and then you know, Roland Dane saw that as well. Obviously, everything just lined up with Jamie wanting to retire. So it's just one of those perfect storms, and you're probably not going to see that come along again for a long time, I don't think.
So you think that's more of like a one-off, like a perfect storm type of situation, that it won't be like the new model? Because like in motocross, for example, that is the model, and it's like the tried and tested model is you get the young kid that's killing it in the amateur ranks.
Yeah.
And then, so you'd call, you know, like your Loretta Lynn's championship. They got the B class, the A class as an amateur, and then they go pro, right? And so you get like a Ryan Villapoto wins everything as an amateur, comes straight into the pro ranks, and like he's a kind of top dude, and then they've got like the lights class and then the open class. So there's like this kind of tier system, and you just see these young guys that once that formula was figured out, that this is how you go from A to B to C to D to E, and then you're a 450 champion. That model has just been, you know, followed, but it wasn't like that until, you know, you sort of saw one guy do it and another guy do it, because it's almost like you said, there was all these things that had to come together. But I mean, you know, maybe people start to manufacture it, those same kind of like put together that same recipe in a sense.
Yeah, I think the models there, and the thing you have with especially touring car racing, you can have an incredibly long career. You can race up into your, you know, mid 40s. So the model's there, people see it. I need to make those steps. I make all the steps, but if there's no spot, there's no spot.
Yeah.
So who's gonna not? You know, there's only 20, 25 seats. That's the issue. So, you know, if the next cycle of good drivers to retire is probably going to be someone like Davo, who's in his 40s. Then
that's so true, eh?
Right?
That creates, because in the motocross world, 27, you're old.
You're beat up, right? You're broke, your bones are aching, you're like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Hope I put enough money away. Those guys just keep on trucking. And then when you're done doing that, you go and co-drive for another 4 or 5 years. So there's just not that much opportunity. And that's the only category in Australia where you're going to get paid to race.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. I hadn't thought of that element, because essentially, you have to wait for someone. It's like musical chairs, and you're just not even going to get a start.
Well, Formula One's got the same problem too, right?
Yeah.
You got someone like Oscar Piastri who's just blazed through everything and like no drive.
Yeah, that is crazy how that one worked out, because he's like a phenom kind of talent, and he's got a signature 2 drive for a team, and then there's just nowhere for him to go.
Nowhere for him to go, and it's you know that he has to get a seat next year, or the whole system doesn't work, does it?
Yeah. Well, they were even talking about letting him go to Williams maybe for a year or something like that.
They've got to do something. For me, Formula One has to do something because they've got this feeder category, F3, F2. Oh, go to F1. Hang on, you don't go to F1. Why is everyone going to spend money doing all the other categories? So.
Yeah, because it's a pay-to-play system right up until F1, and I mean even some guys in F1.
Some guys in the back of the grid are bringing budget, and there's probably 10 guys in supercars that are bringing budget, whether they're new guys coming in, have managed to build up some sponsorship around them, or old guys hanging on, that are got good commercial backing from sponsors and that they like to see them still in the sport. So.
How do you fix it? Have you ever thought about how that gets sorted?
It's easy to fix. You have to make the cars cheaper to run.
Yeah.
So, and then you have to design a car that puts value back into the race teams. You can't, in Australia, we can't have a $600,000, $700,000 race car that costs $100,000 a weekend to run because, and you need more of them on the grid.
Is there space in supercars for more cars?
No. No.
So, but is that in terms of
you could
racetrack
on the grid,
or the?
Yeah, well, what the new deal with the teams is they get turned up, they get some money to turn up, right? So it's around $500,000-$600,000 a year per car, guaranteed start money.
Yeah.
If more car comes in, they just got to keep chopping up the pie. So the teams are protecting their model. They've got these cars that are too expensive to run. The most you can probably get from a good sponsor, maybe 1.5-2 million bucks. So they're trying to piece it all together.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the teams are running around going, I need a fast guy, and I also need him to bring some money.
Yeah.
So it's you just need to start again. And the new car they've come up with, the Gen 3, it hasn't done nothing to put some value back into the race teams where they can actually put the best driver in the car and
so when you say like value for race teams, what does that mean in your mind?
The capital cost of being involved is too much.
Yeah. Okay.
So this new car that's coming out, by the time you buy it, put all your spares package together and have enough rims and tyres and spare parts, you're going to be up $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be $300,000.
Is that doable to still have?
Yeah, of course it is.
And how do you do that?
Just design the car that's not as complicated and doesn't need as many people to run it.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.